Hello, hello, we're live. Oh my gosh, I know it's been so crazy trying to get everything together, but we are here, my good people. We are here. So, who am I and why am I jumping on here at 12:23 and not 12 o'clock? Because I am Black on both sides, right? And so there is that timely thing. But no, for real, we had some unfortunate challenges with our set up this afternoon, but I will tell you, we will be better and right up. Everything gonna be tight next week. Well, next month because we're gonna be doing these every month. Every month. I'm the founder and CEO of Justis Connection. My name is Keisha Brown, and you know what? I'm gonna take a step back because I just jumped in and we're just so excited. But this is how I wanted to start. Daddy, what's a will? So I don't know if y'all know this song, right? This is Jay-Z. This is his legacy song, right? This is from his 444 album. My stake in my nation should go to you. Leave a piece for your siblings to give to their children too. Title to champagne, do say I'd like to see a nice piece fund ideas for people who look like we go. Start a society within society. That's major. It's like yeah. All right. All right. The lawyers are getting nervous because I'm letting too much time play there. But I wanted to set that off because we gotta just keep it real, right? Like we have got to start talking about our legacy and not just in on the mic or feeling like someone has to be a CEO or they have to have a record deal. Hello, to have a legacy. It's about each and every one of us who work damn hard every day for us to be able to build that legacy, right? For ourselves, to know that we did our best, right? For our families, so that they can continue to reap the fruit of our labor, even during and after we're gone, as well as our community, right? Our community benefits when we are prepared for the inevitable. And I will tell you, y'all already know this, right? Death is the inevitable. It is the great equalizer. And so this afternoon, I'm super excited to have two amazing lawyers join us and really break this thing down. Because I'll tell you, I'm learning with you, right? I am learning with you. This is not something that just because you're a lawyer, you know everything about, having a legacy or building a will and knowing the difference between everything. That's not the case, right? We have to learn. All of us have to learn this, and we can count the countless. I want y'all in the chat. I want y'all in the chat to just put in all of the celebrities, right? The people who got real money, lots of money, so we think, right? How many of them have died without a will? How many celebrities have we heard of that it comes out after the fact, right? Like, oh, they had no will. What? Who? Guess what? What's going to happen, right? The same questions. How many of us? I'm going to ask you. So if you don't know any celebrities, I'm going to give you a part two. How many of you know of a house in your neighborhood that has been sitting vacant because they can't figure it out? You know who they are. The cousins and the brothers and sisters, right? Can't figure it out. So there's a house sitting in the neighborhood waiting for something to happen, to go through probate, right? And things have just sort of remained stagnant. Yeah, come on, Nicole. Nicole said, I already know all the top ones. Okay. So we got Chadwick Boseman, may he rest in peace, Black Panther for life, right? Left without a will. And I think recently his family settled with his wife to figure out who got what. Aretha Franklin, the queen of soul, didn't have a will. She got furs. She got, Clyde, what's his name? The one who was with Whitney Houston that made everybody all their money. Right? You know what I'm talking about. She got all the great producers, Quincy Jones, she got them all on speed dial. Don't have a will. Doesn't have a way to capture what she did, right? Prince.
right? I mean, it was just on this album that I just played on 444 that Jay talks about how Prince has Clive Davis. That's it. Hey, caregiver, thank you, Donnie. That was Clive Davis, right? So Prince, who Jay talks about, like now he don't want the master having access to his masters, but he does now, right? Because Prince didn't do his due diligence, and so that's not gonna happen to y'all. Okay, I'm telling you right now, that's not gonna happen to y'all because today you are connecting with some of the best Black lawyers who know this through and through, right? To be able to advise you, yes, to be able to advise you on just giving, we got to start having this conversation. And so I want to start off by thanking some of our partners in this endeavor. We see that Hey Caregiver, um, is in the building. Binti Circle, which is a group of Black women who've gotten together who are caregivers, right, throughout the state of Maryland. We know, I believe the NAACP chapters in Northern Virginia are with us this afternoon. And don't get me started, the Southwest Diverse Chamber of Commerce is with us. Southwest Diverse Chamber of Commerce in Virginia is with us this afternoon. So tell me where you are, because I'm trying to remember everybody and who is here and what's what. But in the chat, shout out your state, shout out where you are. Let me know too if you have a will, because if you have a will, this is a good primer, right? Because if you got your will done last year, then you're good. All right, I'm not going to tell you need to get a new will, but if you got your will done some years ago, look, and don't take my word for it, because I'm just I play a lawyer on TV, right? I'm bringing the real deals who will tell you. But so either way, we need to listen in. We need to listen in. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring our speakers to the stream, and I'm gonna first start with Brother Miles Franklin. Let me make sure you are unmuted. Hello, Miles.
Hi, Keisha. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
It's a little rainy out, but can't complain.
Good, good. I like your background. That's a good one.
We're one of the two that were available for Facebook, so you might see the blurred background in the
No, you're
from
good.
me.
You're good. You're excellent. And then let me bring my next lawyer to the. That's you. Wait. Portia, we got the. All right, Portia.
Hello, how are you? Hi,
Yeah,
Keisha.
good. How are you? All right, let me see if I
Good.
can. No. StreamYard's got the. I don't need to be big. Y'all need to be big because y'all are the ones with all the.
Oh my gosh, seeing
Oh,
my
I know
wow.
face is large and in charge.
that was a lot. I know that
Jeez.
last stream was a lot. We don't need
I
that
was like,
one. But
oh goodness.
I'm so excited to have you both here. I don't want to. I'm usually not someone who does intros because I think sometimes intros are like, let's just get to the nitty gritty. But it is really important for folks to know a little bit about your background. Both of these lawyers, listen up, y'all. Both of these lawyers are the leaders, the managing partner of their law firm, right? They have both went out on their own and established a law practice in their community to be of service. And so these folks are the voice of leadership, right? And so I'm going to let them. I just love, Miles, if you could share a little bit about your background, and I'll tell you, I'm going to just jump in and say a little bit. So Miles is going to bring an interesting perspective because he also has a family law practice. So he's also working with you around whether it's everything from the rooter to the tutor, right? The beginning, the prenup, we just check in, and custody and child support, and maybe if you need to get a divorce. But he knows the intricacies of what it takes on the family law side of things. So Miles, if you could just share a little bit about yourself, um, and then what would you bring to the cookout if you to the Black Family Circle cookout? I just always like to know what people gonna bring.
I love the metaphor, but to start out, just a little bit about myself. So I am a Virginia lawyer. So the questions that you have just had to be in the context of Virginia law. That's what I'm practice barred in. As Keisha was mentioning, I actually started out with a family practice first, so mainly focusing on divorce. That's actually going to be a big point if for a few people, I imagine, people who have been in divorces or contemplating divorces. Even if you have a recent will, one of the things that you're going to have to think about is life after you get the divorce. Wills usually need to be well. I would recommend wills should always, and your estate plan should always be updated after a divorce. But Mostly work with a lot of families who are going through custody issues and who come to me afterwards thinking about estate planning. What is that going to look like in terms of not just at the time of their death, but things of incapacity, who's going to take care of the children, especially in these custody situations where it's a split household. So there's a lot of cross section there between family and estate planning. I hope to answer a few questions that people have about those.
Excellent, excellent. All right, Portia, I know you over there multitasking and probably doing a live on the side. I know how
you know I'm live on TikTok right now too. I always have to share with my TikTok community, so I am definitely live on TikTok as well. But hey, the more people we can reach, right?
That's right. That's right. I'm with it. Spread the love, spread the knowledge, right? And so Portia, for those of you who don't know, she's a dynamo. She's bi-coastal. Okay, for y'all. I don't know if y'all know what bi-coastal is. It's both coasts, okay? She on both sides of the country. So she's everywhere from Virginia to all the way literally on the other side, California. So Portia, if you could just share a little bit about yourself, I'd love that.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Portia Wood. I am a generational wealth planning attorney, founder of Wood Legal Group, which is a mother-daughter estate planning team. We are female-owned, operated, multi-generational, and we, as Keisha mentioned, operate in multiple states. So Maryland, California, DC, Virginia, we have councils in many other states around the country to really build and protect intergenerational wealth, particularly in Black and Brown communities where we have been gatekept from this information. We lose the majority of our earned wealth at the generation transfer. In fact, 70% of African Americans don't have any estate planning at all. And only 13% of college-educated African Americans are even getting $10,000 or more to the next generation. That study was done in 2017. The number is up, which means all of this information that we have been sharing is working, but it's only at 14%, which means only 14% of college-educated African Americans are getting $10,000 or more to the next generation. If we say that differently, that still means 86% are not even getting $10,000 to the next generation. We're passing negative wealth, and we cannot do that. We are on the precipice of one of the largest wealth transfers in the history of this country. The baby boomers, who hold the majority of the wealth, are passing away. And so we have a very limited window to protect what they've been able to build, to make sure that the future generations are able to build on top of it. Because once it is gone, we cannot buy it back. So this is such an important conversation. So Keisha, thank you so much for bringing us on to have this discussion. But I can't say it any plainer, right? We are in a state of emergency, and we have to start taking these conversations more seriously. It is a now or never. Yeah. And the power is in our hands, 100% in our hands to do something.
I told y'all this was going to be good, right?
Right? I do my best, girl. I do my best.
No, we've got to have this conversation, right? And not just, and I'm saying this as all of us who are watching, right, live and recorded later, and Miles and Portia and myself, we all need to engage in this, and it's so important for Black lawyers in particular to be leaders in this conversation, which both of you are. So I'm going to jump right in, and I just want to ask, because what is a will? Because we all out here talking about we all need wills, and do you have a will? And Chadwick Boseman didn't have a will. But essentially, what is it? Like, literally, because somebody told me the other day that they wrote it down. They said it in a voice text and sent it to someone. And they were like, so I got it, the ball started. And I was like, I'm not throwing no shade, but I want to know what's a will?
Miles, you want that, or you go?
Sure, I can give my first impression about that. So a will is just basically you as the individual telling the state, because it has to be submitted to the court for it to go into effect. Just because you write a will doesn't mean it automatically goes into effect. It has to go through probate, and that was mentioned before. But it's you telling the state that I want my assets to be distributed in X, Y, and Z fashion to X, Y, and Z individuals. If you don't have a will, it's going to be distributed based on the state's laws. It's called intestacy law. So typically that goes to your spouse, and then to your children, and then to other family members. So if you telling the state that I want my assets to be distributed in a certain way, and so do it this way. But it has to go through the process to do so, and that's where a lot of people run into issues getting it through probate.
Yeah. So, Portia, tell me, I mean, can we, I keep hearing, and everybody keeps hearing about this probate, right? We hear about, I feel like we're light years ahead because we know the term wills, right? But then probate keeps flying around like this thing that we should be intimidated by, scared of, avoiding. What is
avoiding? You should be avoiding 100%.
Yeah.
The baseline estate plan for anybody, and this is where I start, is the plan that's going to keep you out of court, because those are just unnecessary fees that are coming out of what you've worked for, right? It also puts the court in control. And in a place like California, where probate is a very, very long process, the court was closed for 6 months during the pandemic. And so it's making even simple probates 18 months and 2 years long because you can't get court dates. That's a really long time to not have access to the money and anything else that might be able to be used or leveraged or sold or changed or whatever. It also leaves a lot of time for family struggles and challenges, etc. Probate court is just the state system for transferring title to your assets. Because if you haven't changed title during life, the only entity that can change title after you're gone is the court. Nobody has the power to sign your name. You're gone. Your power of attorney is terminated. It terminates on death. It's done. And so you go through a probate court simply to change title. If you did a living revocable trust or I mean, the simplest form, right? A living revocable trust, you actually change title while you are alive. That's called funding. And so when you pass away, you've already picked who can manage those assets. They already have legal authority. They don't need a judge to transfer title to those assets, which means you can completely avoid that process, which saves a ton of money. In California, fees are set by statute. So if you am on the gross value of the estate, not the net value. So regardless of how much debt you have, right? You got $1 million estate, you owe $900,000, you only have $100,000 of equity that can be used by your family, right? 46,000 of that is gone in personal representative fees and attorney's fees by statute. That's not court fees. That's not if anybody fights when we get our extraordinary fees, which is regular hourly rates. That's not if you have to deal with real estate where we also get extraordinary fees. I mean, it adds up. And there is a reason why people end up at the end of a probate not getting anything and it going all these different places. You brought up Chadwick Boseman. People keep saying, oh, if he had had a will, a will wasn't going to help all that much. If he had had a will, he still would have ended up in probate court.
Why?
Because a will still needs, as Miles mentioned, a will needs to be certified by a judge. The assets and title has to be changed by a judge.
So now we're gonna get into what happens in the on the ground floor for non-Chadwick Boseman level people, right? So my grandfather passes and they have a will, but they don't go to probate. They're able to sell the house. They're able to divide the house amongst the children and avoid going to court. So is that typical, or is it typical that you have to go to court?
So what state was that? Because that's also going to be really important. Okay. Every state is different. So that's an important piece. That's why I keep saying in California, it is like this. You said it was in Florida.
Yeah.
So in Florida, they have something called a ladybird deed, where you could actually put people on title. So when you pass away, the house goes to those people. And so I don't know if that's what happened in this instance, but if it was just a will, it typically needs to be certified. And the judge would have had to change title to give them power. If they had a ladybird deed, it would have gone directly to the people who were listed on that deed. And they would then have had legal authority to sell the house and do other things without going through a probate process. So it just depends on how that was structured. It does not seem typical or common that there would have only been a will and they would have had the authority to sell the house.
Oh, it wasn't a will, it was a trust. Does that make a difference, Miles and Portia?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Got it. So we got wills down, right? Everybody watching?
They're not sufficient. Let's start there. Before we finish this conversation, because
I wasn't saying we finished with it. I was just saying we feel like we got, like we know the word will, right?
You know
It's
the
in our
will.
vocabulary, right? That we're like, you got a will, he got a will, we got a will, my mama left a will, right? We feel like the wills, but this, hey, we got their other terms. I mean, you've mentioned a number in your last answer, right? So
Right.
irrevocable trust, ladybird, trust estate, right? Estate planning. Even the word estate, I'm going to take it a step back, right? Because oftentimes, and this is folks who, this is for everybody watching. I want folks to feel like you are not alone in really trying to understand the basics here. And then just because you have a good job or went to college or have an advanced degree doesn't mean, right? We're in this country, we're not taught about how to preserve our legacy, what retirement, how do we take care of our children after we die. There's a whole afterlife aspect of adulting. Come on, y'all, we're just trying to get today done. We got to figure out afterlife adulting too. But how can we, what, Miles, can you share about this aspect of a trust, right? So I brought in sort of this new term, like, okay, I said the word will, but no, actually it's a trust. What is a trust?
Well, a trust is just to the earlier point where we're in a will. You're saying that you're going through the court process to have the title transferred over to the other individuals who you want in the will to get. A trust is just a living document. Well, most of the times it's created when you're still alive, and it's a tool where you can transfer the title to those same individuals you would have put for the will while you're still alive. And a lot of the times, at least a lot of times when I'm putting together a trust for a client, a lot of times they're married and they'll have both first themselves as a trustee. So the way it works is in a trust, the trustor, the person who's creating the trust, is saying, okay, I'm establishing a trust and I want these individuals to manage the trust after it's established. Those are the trustees. I usually recommend that in a married couple that you place yourself as the trustee as well as your spouse. So in the the inevitable event where you die, and it's before your spouse is automatically takes over as the trustee. And so in that way, it manages, they're the ones who are actually managing the trust. But in regards to the property is whatever you put into the trust beforehand. And so that's transferring the title of every major, I recommend major assets, whether that's the home or that's major, there's sometimes where you don't want to put like major personal property like boats or cars into the trust, and that kind of goes into liability instances. Like, let's say you get into a car crash, you don't necessarily want your expensive car to be in the trust in case the other person wants to sue, because then they see, well, you have all these other assets in the trust, well, let's try and claim that. It might incentivize people to try and claim the money that way. But a little bit of a tangent there. It's basically just a way to transfer the title over without having to go through probate.
Wow, got you. One of the questions that's come up so far is a written letter at home signed and dated sufficient for someone's family when they pass?
So
a will is not enough.
Yeah.
I'm just going to repeat that over and over again.
Would that count as a will, Portia? Would that count as a will?
That would depend on jurisdiction. Some jurisdictions do recognize a holographic will, which would be handwritten at home by a person. It would need to be signed and dated, list their assets, etc. Some jurisdictions do recognize a holographic will, but even those that do, even those that do, it can be incredibly difficult to get it through, to get it approved. It can create a whole lot of
by who?
By the court, accepted by the court as a legal document of this person's wishes. And so, is it sufficient for someone's family? We can't answer that. We don't know what that letter looks like or what state you're in. Is it recommended? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But a will in it of itself is not recommended, despite the fact that it is often touted as something that all of us need to have. It by itself is generally insufficient for preserving wealth. And we work really hard for what we are putting together. And so we need to make sure that it's properly protected. And a will just is not sufficient.
Excellent. All right. Thanks for that question, Lakeisha. So I wanted to ask, we got some questions ahead of time, right? And so I want to incorporate those as well. And some of the fundamentals, we talk a lot about assets and sort of what you would want to be preserved or, a part of your legacy and what you're passing down, what are typically some things that people should consider as assets? Because sometimes folks are like, oh, I need to get a will. I'm married, I got a good job, we got this house, we got 2 cars, I got 2 kids. What am I going to do? Right. But what are these assets that we should be considering?
Everything. So generally, right, your home is, for most Americans, their largest asset, right? And it also has been one of the fastest wealth builders in the country, in the nation, historically. And so preserving the home is incredibly important. But you also have your bank accounts, you have retirement accounts, you've got life insurance, right? Particularly if you have minor kids, you should have an adequate amount of life insurance for replacing your economic value to your household. Some people have copyrights that they own. Maybe they wrote a book or a poem, or they've got a TikTok account. There's all kinds of things that are assets. Your digital assets, who gets to log into your Facebook page, who gets your cryptocurrency. All of these things are assets. Who gets your clothes? People don't realize, like, when we say the word estate, oftentimes people immediately think millions of dollars, doesn't relate to me. I don't have an estate. And what people don't realize is that they are their estate. Your physical being and everything that you have is an estate. It's just not, and everybody's estates are different. The reason that study I quoted earlier used $10,000 as a barometer when they were doing the study is because they found that $10,000 was enough to be transformational in someone's life. It was enough to get someone out of the paycheck to paycheck cycle. It was enough to make an investment and have a meaningful return that could impact people's lives. And so $10,000 was considered to be wealth. And so what we have to do is reframe this conversation around what wealth actually is. Everybody has an estate, and everybody has an estate plan. The real difference is, do you have an estate plan that you created for yourself? Or are you defaulting to the state's plan for you? Those are the big things. So when we think about assets, anything and everything that you have is an asset.
Yeah. No, excellent. And that's, I'm glad that I saw that study, and that study is a heavy one, right? It really breaks things down. And that 10,000 trigger is real. And sometimes we might think, I don't have $10,000 in my bank account. That's not what my savings looks like, right? But this is where you add up, like you said, all of your assets. And we have more than we think that we do, right? Some folks got $500,000 between the two of them coming in monthly in annual income and think they don't have enough money, right? And the reality is that you do, and you need to protect it and your children. What would you say is one of the most defining aspects of connecting with yourself as an estate planning attorney? Like, we're having clearly getting nuggets, real nuggets here, people. And I hope everybody taking notes. I just plan on watching the video to take my notes, right? But like, as you're taking notes and folks are like, this is really informative, right? Then we have that next step, right? From listening and learning, but to actually, what's that next step that people should take after you listen and learn, right? Is it writing down all your assets? And if you hit the 10,000 mark, call Portia or Miles. What would you say is that next step after we get off from here? Like, what do we do after we listen and learn?
Portia, did you want to take that first, or I can take a stab at it?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I can only speak to kind of the flow I usually go with. We'll have our initial kind of 5-10 minute phone call to speak about, and usually most people come in saying, I want a will, I need a will. And that's kind of the starting point. And one of the kind of things I like to do is just have, especially for the ones who are married, to have them kind of go back before we go for like a fuller in-person meeting and really think about not just death planning, which is the will, or kind of the latter half of the trust after you die, but also kind of thinking about, as you get into it, one of the inevitabilities in addition to death is also advanced aging. And so a lot of people kind of overlook the fact that, yeah, having a will, having a trust, even having a trust, that's all great, but what happens when you're incapacitated? What happens when, and for an extended period of time, what the things that you've collected in life, what's going on there? How are people managing your decision? How are you being treated? Because to the point of you being an asset, you may not want to be put into some kind of a certain hospital, or you may want to be put in hospice when your family would say otherwise. And if you don't have a specific power of attorney, which is another real big part of an estate plan, then you're potentially putting yourself at a bad position later down the line if you're not able to make those decisions. So I have them kind of go back and really think about, what does a comprehensive plan, what do I really want things to look like when I'm 70 or 80 or after I'm dead, or what do I want to go to Jimmy Job, or what cousin? Those are the conversations you really need to have before you come back to my office and say, here's what I want, because I can't tell you what you want. At the end of the day, it's going to be your estate. Just like with custody, just like with divorce, it's your family. You need to think about what you really want before you come to me to take the steps forward.
Touche. We got to do our own thinking and our own sort of reflection, right, on who we are and what we want. Portia, what would you say as well?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Miles, right? There's a certain level of understanding that people need to have, which is why on our website we have a free resource library to help people know what their options are. Generally, and what I find is that people don't know what they're up against. So they don't know how to protect themselves because they don't know what is in front of them and what they're facing. And so because of that, they don't necessarily know what to do next, which is why we have the resource library. It's why we do webinars in our office all the time to help people understand what the process is, so that then they can start to think about, well, now that I know that this is what it looks like, how do I do that differently? I do things a little bit differently. People can come in and we do strategy sessions. So we like to sit down and really understand about their family structure, right? What are the asset levels and the categories of assets that are inside of their estate? And then what are their overarching goals? Generally, we do a lot of multi-generational planning, trust-based planning in our office. So we're really looking at how do we take what you have and build upon it so that the generations, 6 generations down the road, are still benefiting from whatever you created today. Because it doesn't matter how much it is, right? There's always got to be a first. There's always got to be someone who makes a concerted effort and plan for what happens with those assets, and it will reverberate down the line. I myself am a direct beneficiary, 6 generations down the road, of someone who did estate planning. Now, would it have been the estate plan I would have recommended? No, but it still has impacts today that an enslaved person in Montgomery County, Maryland, was able to create an estate plan that has continued to support our family for generations. Or at least the effects of that has allowed for us to continue to build. And so I start with education, much like Miles, and then we really do sit down and do strategy sessions. In our community, there are more complex issues inside of estate planning that we have to deal with. And people don't necessarily know that those things are issues. Particularly, we had the war on drugs, which was essentially a war on Black and brown communities. It also meant that many people, especially in the baby boomer population, have beneficiaries that have been impacted. So maybe have been incarcerated at some point in time, or an addicted person. They may have back child support issues and other things. And if they inherit a property, the state can attach to their interest, which can completely lose or take away that asset as a wealth building opportunity for that family. But you can plan around those things. You can plan for setting up a trust for that person where they still get the benefit of that asset, but the state can attach to it. You can't do that if you don't have a plan. And so you have to know what you're facing so that you can put something in place to protect it. So we do a lot of sort of hand holding and walking people through the different types of estate plans that they can put into place, depending on what their goal is and depending on, their own individual circumstances.
Yeah. I love that you both were very thorough in your sort of like what comes next after you listen and learn, because it can be very intimidating for folks to feel like I got to hire someone to help me through this process. And then there's also, I think, a group of people who in my conversations, even with college friends, and they'll say, you know what, I really need to get a will. Right. Again, we're sort of at that, which is fine. We're at least in the door. All right. We're in the door. Well, I need to do something to protect the assets. And what you both have shared with us this afternoon is assets is everything. Right. It is us. We are the asset. We're considering our children, our household goods, all different types of things that come into play. And even though this is about our lives and what it is that we intend to happen after we are gone, getting a guide, getting an expert, getting someone who has done this before, knows the ropes, understands the different players is what you're paying for, right? There is value in that whole package of being able to get a trusted advisor through this process, right? And we're so used to getting trusted advisors for our son's basketball team, right? We pay a coach for our son's basketball team, right? We send our children to university and pay top dollar for that because we know that they are skilled, or at least, right, they are said to be skilled and hired to guide our children into their academics. But when it comes to preparation for our future, right, that afterlife, taking care of generations to come, we think we can go it alone. Or if we close our eyes, it's like, you got to figure this thing out when I'm gone, y'all. So I think this has been very helpful for a lot of folks. And someone mentioned just, folks think they can't afford one, right? And the thing about affordability, I will say this, and I want the Amen choir to give me a little bit of love on this one, is that we prioritize what we value. Right. And so I never ask the lawyers in the Justis Connection Network to say, hey, I need you to do something for free. Now, if they decide to do pro bono, which is what free legal services are referred to, if they decide to give pro bono legal services, that is on them. And most of Black lawyers do pro bono work at some point every year. But what is important is that we understand the value of what we're getting with connecting with an estate planning attorney, which is why, like, hearing them and seeing them and understanding and listening and learning is so important. Because when we want to go to the Bahamas and get some R&R and get our tan and the best margarita we can get, or in Cancun or wherever have you, or Bali, right, Vietnam, wherever it is that you're like, I got to get away, you prioritize it. Right. And whether you say, I'm going to put it on my credit card and I'm going to pay it off over time, you do what you got to do to get what you need done because you've prioritized it. And I want all of us to consider prioritizing our future, prioritizing our family, prioritizing our legacy in ways that really take the onus and the responsibility on us, right? To do the real work in understanding and learning and taking those next steps, as Miles and Portia have said. And there's always a range. And that's the beauty. I will say in the Justis Connection Network, there is an amazing range of lawyers who have different price points, right? And different price points can also get you, sometimes it's based on the lawyer and their location. It's based on their years of experience. It's based on their comfort level. It's based on a number of different things, but I will tell you, they go to law school. Well, first they go to undergrad, right? They get their 4 years and then they go to law school. And then they have years of training and experience that they bring to the table when you sit down, like, what should I do? Okay. You get to come to the table and say, I still need some help. And they are expected to know. And so that's what you're paying for. Right? You're paying for that, not just that end result, right? That you walk out and you got your sheet of paper and you're like, Mama, I did it, got it. All right. But you're paying for that whole process. And so I want us to, I'm going to honor our time. I know both of our attorneys are very busy people because they serve in the people. But I do want to be able to allow them to share anything that might be, if there's any other questions. I know I see some other points getting raised. If there are any other questions, throw them out now, right? Because I want to make sure that we are able to address them. But you can also reach Justis Connection lawyers at any time at your convenience, right? Like, that's the beauty of being with Justis Connection, is that you're able to be able to connect with us. And you can do that on our website by just coming and being able to say, I'm ready. I did it. I had a conversation with myself first, then with my spouse, if you have one, right? And be able to then come to the table ready to say, I'm ready to have this conversation, right? And one of the things that we do at Justis Connection is we encourage you to talk to a couple of different lawyers, right? I'm not going to say Miles is better than Portia, Portia better than Miles, or whatever have you. It's really about who connects best with you. That's what's most important, because what's for Miles is for Miles, what's for Portia is for Portia. You have to make the decision of who is best to be able to be your guide, right? And who you connect with on a personal level, and you feel like you have the confidence in them, right, to do right by you. Because at the end of the day, especially when that credit card swipes, right, or you putting in that number, you need to feel confident about the other person and what you're about to get into, because that way you come out of it feeling empowered. You come out of it feeling like I've accomplished a really big deal for myself and my family, and that's what we're about, right? And we're not just talking the talk anymore, y'all. We do in the do. So a big part of that is connecting with both Miles and Portia, which I am eternally grateful for both of you. And I want to give you an opportunity to like share any last thoughts you might have.
I just have one point, just to touch on one of the things you had mentioned about a question of how do I afford it, and can I afford it? And to your point of prioritizing, I look at it the same way I look at divorces and custody. These are uniquely personal cases. There's really nothing more important than your family. There's nothing more important than making sure that they're provided for. And so if the question, if you have, is can I afford it? Well, to Keisha's point, there's a variety of lawyers, and I'm sure there's someone you can find at your price point. But to the latter point is, can your family afford to correct any mistakes in or handle your estate after you die? And the answer, if you have any doubt about that, or if you have any concern about that, I certainly encourage you to find somebody to make sure that you're well provided for, because you only really get one chance to make it right, and your family has to deal with any mistakes afterwards. So not to scare anyone, but that's, again, the kind of the reality of life, right? Everyone's going to die. So you want to make sure that those who are left afterwards are well provided for.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Miles. Portia?
Yeah, I would sort of second or third what you guys have said when it comes to an affordability aspect. Where you are, right, on the spectrum is going to depend what your estate plan looks like. No two estate plans are the same. They should be individual and personal for where you are. Again, like I said, the baseline level estate plan, at least for me, is that you avoid court, because you should not have those unnecessary expenses. If you don't have probatable assets in your estate and you're not above your individual state's threshold, then your estate plan is going to be far more affordable. But if you do have those other assets, already you know what you need. And we can look at the costs, right? I can put them literally on a sheet and say, this is a baseline cost of not doing this. And this is a baseline cost of what it would take to avoid it. And you decide, right? The power is 100% in your hands to do something or nothing, right? The other piece that I would say is, when we're thinking about the relationship with your estate planning attorney, you want this to be an ongoing relationship. You do not want it to be a one and done, because who's going to keep you updated when laws change, right? Who's going to keep you updated when strategies change? Who's going to be that sort of guide for you as things go along? You want that to be your estate planning attorney. For everybody out there, we all are working. Some of us are, investing and buying and building assets, and there's a hot button about generational wealth. But the foundation of your financial home is your estate plan. You can build a golden palace, but if your foundation is not solid and secure, I don't care what that palace looks like. One little blow, and that will all come tumbling. So make sure that you're securing the base first, because that's what's going to make that house last forever. And I don't care if that house is made of sticks, made of bricks, made of gold. If the foundation is secure, you can keep building on top of it. So I would say, the best time is to start now, start often. And it's not just about when you're 70 and 80. It's what happens tomorrow. There have been so many examples. Chadwick Boseman is just one. Britney Spears is another in a conservatorship. These are young people. They're not old. And yet their lack of estate planning has had huge impacts, negatively for their lives and for the people who they left behind. So it really is the moment you turn 18 or your kids turn 18, they should have an estate plan. They're just not necessarily going to have the estate plan that you have because they're just getting started. But from the moment they are legal adults in our society, they need to designate who will make decisions for them if they are ever in a car accident, if they're ever in a coma, if they're ever, for some reason in a position that they cannot care for themselves. They need to have someone legally designated. And it is always a very unfortunate rude awakening for parents when they go to try to talk to the university and they won't give them any information, or they go to the hospital and the doctors can't talk to them anymore. And they're like, that's my baby, but they're not. They're an illegal adult and there are rules. And if they don't have a plan in place, you don't have access and you have to go to a judge and ask for permission to care for your child. And so we need to start thinking in the context of at 18, when we turn legal adults, we are also taking our kids to the estate planning attorney to get a basic estate plan in place to protect them as we put them out into the world.
Yeah. See, I know. You just started some stuff with that, with the closing words. Both of you did. I'm like, oh, I know folks were like, wait a second. That's a whole nother ball of, and this is not our only conversation, right? Like, clearly, we're having this here together with Justis Connection, bringing lawyers to the forefront. But I encourage you to do so in your smaller circles, right? To continue having those conversations and knowing that you may not be the expert, to tap into the resources that are out there, right? Literally, we are all committed to really building up Black wealth in different ways, right? And so reach out to Portia, reach out to Miles. Hey, I would love to have you come back to, my circle, to my church, to my wherever, but we need to make sure that the conversation, the information learning doesn't just end, right? And we say that was great. I had a good time. But for all of us here today, we know from Portia and Miles that we learned and listened, but it's also about that next step, really looking at our own estates, right? And having the first couple of conversations with ourselves and our spouse, and then going from there. What do we need to do next? Even if you go, look, I'm gonna tell y'all, you can go to the Justis Connection website and look up and put in some information for estate planning lawyers. And I do not want you to waste their time though, right? Like if you're like, I'm not hiring anybody today, then that's okay. But if you're like, look, I'm on a trajectory where my goal is by summertime, I want to have an estate plan in place, right? Don't wait till summer, right? Start the process now by having these conversations with them about who would be the best guide for you, who's the right attorney, because they'll tell you this, it's not a 2-day thing. It's not a 2-day turnaround, right? They do in-depth work to learn about you, your values, your assets, your goals, and so forth. And so we got a plan for the future, and that's going to take a little bit of time. So start that process now. And I want to thank, let me make sure the comments were good. Thank you for all you do. See, daughter turned 18, never thought of that. And yeah, so let me thank you, Portia. Thank you, Miles. This was incredible. We got to figure out, for all of you who are watching, if you're not subscribed to Justis Connection's newsletter, please do. We're going to send the replay through there. Clearly, if you're on Facebook, you can tap back into it at any time. When you're having lunch and you're like, I need to get that back into my psyche. What the heck did Portia and Miles say? Put it on, because that's what we got to do. We got to continuously feed ourselves, right, with that knowledge and that pathway for where we want to head. So Miles and Portia, thank you very much. I will release you this afternoon. We'll get back to it.
Thank you
very much. And for all of you out there, this has been incredible having you. Please let us know. What do you want to hear about next? Well, I'll tell you what you're going to hear about next, because February, we are having civil rights. I know it's Black History Month. We got to get as Black as we can. We already Black-led business with Black attorneys, and we're going to go all the way down, right? All the way in it. So we're going to talk about civil rights and bring on some dynamic civil rights civil rights attorneys who are doing everything from suing Trump to protecting us against police brutality, everything in between. Yes, Lakeisha, employment law, I believe, is March. I believe March is when we're going to be, yes, March is when we're doing employment. So if you are a part of an organization, if you're a part of a sorority or fraternity and you'd like to be one of our partners for the monthly Ask Me Anythings, hit us up on Facebook, send us a DM, or you can email us directly at info@justisconnection.com. If you are a lawyer, you can connect with me directly. I'd love to connect with you and learn more about your practice and see if we can support you. We are all about harnessing the amazing talent that is in the Black legal community and bringing it to the people. That's it. That's the secret sauce, y'all, right? So we know that, first of all, let me tell you, everybody and their mama is out here advertising the Black people because they know that we have tremendous resources and tremendous assets. They know better than we do. That's why literally when you get off of this, when you get out of this session tonight, after you finish your work or during work, if you're working from home and you got some time to just ideate, right? Think about your assets. Think about your car. You're like, it's old. Maybe it's worth $3,000. That's $3,000. Write it down. Add up. And then put down how many children you got. How many, child's mothers or fathers do you have that you need to also take into account? Are they a part of your plan as well, right? All of these things, we've got to start to do the real serious work around. So instead of catching whatever is replaying tonight, it's a rerun anyways. But your life is the real reality show, right? And so I encourage you to connect with the estate planning attorneys if you're interested. We are currently in Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia. We are expanding this quarter to Florida, Georgia, and New York. Chicago will be there by second quarter. So that's like late spring, early summer. And we'll probably be to New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Texas, North Carolina before the end of the year, right? So we're growing rapidly, and it's because y'all are with us, right? You support us, you share us, you like us, you comment on us. All of that stuff matters, right? The algorithm is real. So definitely keep in touch with us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Don't even bother. I don't even go on. We don't really do anything on Twitter. But we want to be connected and we want to be responsive. We want to know what is important to you, and then that way we can bring that information to you. It makes never mind for me to have building a network of legal eagles if we're not tapped into the community in really powerful ways, right? We are here to serve and we're happy to do so. And I'm just very appreciative for all of you for joining us this afternoon. And we look forward to seeing you on the third Thursday of March for our Civil Rights Ask Me Anything. All right, take care, y'all. Bye. All right, let me see if I can get...
It was a time America wouldn't let us fall. Those times are now back. It's now called Afrotech. Generational wealth, that's the key. My parents ain't had shit, so that shift started with me.
Come on.
My mom took up money, she bought me bonds. That was the sweetest thing of all time. Legacy. Black excellence, baby. You gonna let them see.
Come on.
Legacy. Black excellency. Baby, let them see.
Let them see, y'all. Black excellency. Love you.